Every raga has at least 3 moods. It's probably a good time to say, and there's one mood in common for every raga: bhakti. So that's the connection to bhakti yoga right there. So all this classical music is a higher form of musical devotion, a higher form of musical discipline to stay in tune perfectly and to stay in rhythmic perfectly as a path to God. Sure, if you're singing, you're also singing spiritual lyrics as well. Similar to bhajan, you know, a story about the gods, rather than kirtan, which is just God, God, God is God is God is God is God, God, God is God is God is God is God, 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 right? Maybe a little very great, you know. But bhajan is the next level up to kirtan, which tells a story and might have a chorus that's God, 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 God. Pardon me for paraphrasing. So in the classical music, you learn hundreds of fixed compositions. You learn how to improvise and make them flowery and beautiful. And then if you're an instrumentalist, you also learn to play that composition in an instrumental way. And you're imbibing the emotions, the 3 emotions that you're showed how they are reached by playing this delicate musical figure. Sadapadamapagama. It's like the heart of Bhairavi. Sadapadamapagama. There's a heart for every rag. There's the king note. So, and the prime minister, Sadigama, might be reversed, Ma, and Sa is the prime minister. And then you have different family variations of that minor scale, Bhairavi. And so each one has, you know, different ways to approach notes. So you're learning, it's almost as if you're carving or painting a masterpiece and you're learning which colors to use, but it's audio, it's audible.
And what were those 3 moods that you were talking about?
Well, there are 9 basic moods, but there are even more than that when you get into theater. And you have peace and pathos and joyfulness. Anger is a little more getting closer into theater music. Where am I? I should have written them down to remember. It's been so long. Happiness, sadness, longing. I'm getting close to 9. Bhakti, devotion, heroic. A lot of the old Drupad, pure Hindustani classical music is very heroic. There's, you know, like rhythms that go with that, like Japtal Tenbi Din Na Chaka Din 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 Na Din Na Chaka Din 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 Na. You know, very, very heroic stuff. And when you move out, basically the classical music, we like to think was the original raga formats and the scales that came down and the original music. I would say today we might get away with calling it channeled by these rishis, like in the jungle and in the temples. It moved into the temples and they were hearing, somebody gave them this incredibly complex literature to how to portray nature and emotions and everything going on the planet through music. And it really is Ayurvedic cooking of music. It's the Ayurvedic science. So Nada Brahma, the sound of God, is really one of the Vedic yogas, along with all the other yogas. Whether it's asanas or bhakti yoga or jnana yoga, intellectual studying the scriptures yoga. So it is another yoga, and I've heard it referred to as the lost yoga because it was never written down. Or not, I mean, it was in certain sections, but really the bulk of it was passed down from father to son, father, guru to disciple, to the king's children, to the lords in the court's children. It was not folk music. It was protected in the temples, and then it was protected in the courts. And then about 1,000 years ago, you had the Arabs invade, and then the Muslims took over in North India and set up the Mughal dynasties, and they brought in, even though they were Muslim, they brought in the best Hindu temple musicians they could find, or possibly from the older courts, the Hindu courts that they had subdued in North India. So they would lure away the greatest musicians to their Mughal courts, and they would also bring musicians from Persia, the Sufi musicians. And for hundreds of years, starting about 1,000 years ago, there was this intersection where the musicians were taken care of by the emperor or the kings. So they didn't have to go get a job like most of us have to do today while we're studying. Their whole day was devoted to practicing and playing and studying music. And there were obviously intercultural exchanges and marriages, and students who would be born Hindu and study what was going on in the classical music at that time. Was the Muslim Sufis were learning the classical Hindu Carnatic music, and it changed and got the title Hindustani. North Indian classical music is a merger of Muslim and Hindu music. And many ragas were then composed in the, around the 1500s, 1400s that show a more romantic style that merged into the ragas. Still a lot of serious stuff too. But up until that point, the drum that had been played in India was a pakawach. It was a single drum. It was a barrel of wood or clay, and it was played sideways, and it was very martial and, elephantine, very low pitch. And so when the Muslims came and brought this romanticism, and the music started in the courts to be played in this North Indian style, it needed a lighter sounding drum. And so tabla was obviously invented. So it's a much lighter sounding drum. There's so many stories about tabla. They would have competitions, and drummers would go to another palace in another kingdom. And this is before tabla, so they were playing the pakawach. And the pakawach had that heavy sound. And the drummers would play solos, and they say that the drummer who just totally blew everybody away reached over and grabbed the other guy's big barrel drum and broke it in half. And they handed it to the other guy, and the other guy went home to his kingdom and took his 2 drums in his practice room and probably put them up like that and had an epiphany. Probably modified them a little, and went back the next year and blew them all away. Nobody really knows how tabla was invented. Every school of tabla has their own story. I like that one.
And you demonstrated earlier, by being able to recite what you were playing. Would you be able to give, an example of that? Not only are there all these different individual notes that you can play on a tabla, but they have a vocal, component to them as well, counterpart.
Well, there's less than a dozen main strokes. You have ta, which is played on the edge. If you move your finger over, also notice I have an anchor here for ta. If If I move, I'm hitting the wood underneath. It's got a woody sound. If I move my finger over, this is tin. There's no wood under it. You know that? It's a little more rounded. Here's ta with the wood, and here's tin. A little without. Then if I keep going, I pick up the anchor. That's tune. And then I get tet, like a platypus, these three fingers. And then my index, te, tet, te. And this stroke, ne. And we have te, re. And on the bass drum. So this is all on the treble, the dion, the right hand. And on the left, for me, the bayan, ge. And I just walk. One finger, two fingers. Ge, ge. Ge, 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 ge. So by pressing with my palm and sliding onto the black dot, change the pitch. We call it change the modulate. So they're all called ge, 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 and cut. Now when you put them together, ta and ge, all the treble sounds on the treble drum, ta, tin, and tun, become a D sound. So ta and ge become da, tin and ge become din, tun and ge, dun, tet and ge, det, and ter and ge become det. Pretty cool. And when you put them together, you learn hundreds of fixed composition in half dozen or more styles. Different regions have different styles of composition. And you have a verbal language, mnemonics, I believe they call it. Everything that you play, you also say, almost as much as you play it, which means you're saying it while you're playing it. You're saying it when you're not playing it, when you're waiting for the bus. Da, din, din, da, da, din, 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 da, da, tin, 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 ta, tet, din, 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 da. Da, din, din, da, da, din, din, da, da. Din, din, ta, tet, din. So there's also a clapping and a waving. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, da. Din, din, da, da. Din, din, da. 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, da. So all these different patterns that are basic to the sitar player or the vocalist or the sarod player or the instrumentalist are called tekas. And those tekas for classical music generally start at 7, and the most common ones are 7, 10, 12, and the most common 16. 16-beat rhythmic cycle, which is what we just played. We also play in odd times like 9 and 13 and 15 and 8.5 and 9.25, and that's for another video. But 16 is what we just played. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Divided 4, 4, 4, 4. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So clap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Da, din, din. So inside this cycle, din, ta, I get to play composition or improvise. Dati daga din nagin daga. Din din da da din 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 da. So I played a little kind of composition or improv, and then I came back to the teka. And the teka is that fixed rhythm that the sitar player or any instrumentalist and I both recognize as our bottom line rhythm. So when I play this, they're soloing, improvising, or playing composition. When they're done playing their turn, they play one phrase 3 times, which is called a T-high. And we're going to do a 5-beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that's to 1. Or back to 1. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So when they play that or sing that, I know it's my turn to play my composition or my solo. And I end also with a T-high. One phrase 3 times. D din da da din da 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 din da din da din da din da 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 din da din da da din Now I did play a T-high at the end, and now the sitar player is going nuts. And I'm waiting patiently, and I'm going to use my time to accompany them with some way of flowering, ornamentating this teka to make it complementary to what they're playing. So a good tabla player knows how to just do it right, which usually means play soft. But you have to accent the bars. So every 4 beats from 1, 1, 5, 9, 13. So you accent those. And so like that, I'm a roadmap for them. So if they get lost, when they hear 10, 11, 12, 13, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So what they're hearing is this bass drum drop out. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It comes back. 15, 16, 1. So it comes back on 14, 15, 16. 1. And that's how they know where 1 is. They can feel that. So if they get lost, they wait for that, and this, and 1. If I'm twice as fast, da, din, din, da, 5, 6, din, da, da, din, din. Din, din, da, ti, da, din, din, da, ti, da, din, din, na, na, ti, ti, din. So, here it is again. 10, 11, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 1. So here you can hear it better. There you go. Hear it come in 3 bayas, 3 bass beats. 1, 2, 3, 1. That's how you hear it.